but we're happy to support it to select committee. Thank you.
I call the Honourable Member Gareth Hughes.
Well, kia ora, Mr Speaker. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Kia ora. It's a pleasure to rise to take the call on the electronic identity verification bill. I'd also like to share the best wish of this House. So congratulations to you, Mr Assistant Speaker. Congratulations to the new ICT Minister, Amy Adams, to all members in this House who were elected at the last Parliament. But I also want to thank the officials, because I know, and it's been surprising, Labour hasn't taken credit for it in the debate that I've heard, but they did do a lot of work in the years they were in government, getting this process with iGov, the process towards this legislation started. So I'd like to acknowledge their work and also the officials who have worked with them over a number of years for this bill. So it's an important emerging issue we're discussing in this Parliament in 2012. We're quite right. We're talking about our lives, we're talking about our memory, and we're talking about our data. And one only has to look at Facebook to see that company didn't get rich just by selling ads or subscriptions. They got rich because they managed data. They managed to package, compile and share data in such a way that they're one of the wealthiest companies in the world, and I think their share offer will be immensely huge. The Greens share with the other parties their support for this legislation to select committee. What I'd like to talk about, Mr Speaker, is that the importance of it around easing the relationship with government departments. I note in the regulatory impact statement there's a quote of over $300 million in tangible economic benefits to the nation. That's good. I imagine, and I'd love to ask a question of one of the officials, what the time saving they estimate for people using this using this system could be across the country, because I'm prepared to wager any member in this chamber the time savings from this bill for a minuscule sum of money will be much more considerable than the $19 billion the government's currently borrowing to spend on motorways, literally only saving minutes of Kiwis' time across the country. So we see the potential, we see the benefits, that's why we're supporting it to first committee. But like the other parties, we do think there are valid concerns. We'll be asking some questions in the select committee. So this bill, Mr Speaker, effectively sets up an online passport. I think it makes sense. I think it's common sense. You've got a mishmash of different login requirements for different government departments. Like Darian Fenton, I can't remember half of my passwords and have to keep giving them to email it to myself, because there's just so many when you're engaging only with government departments, let alone all the other services people use online for work or for pleasure. So we see the common sense. I've been very interested to follow over the years the progress of the iGov, which is currently the contractual only service preceding this legislation, the trial which effectively is making this legislation relevant and I'd say desirable. But I'd also note, look, there's only 400 odd people on iGov at the moment. The Minister might be able to correct me. I'd love to see more people using this service. And I've also got some concerns, because I have to write to the Minister of Internal Affairs just to go to the National Library, and I asked him more than a year ago if I could have a briefing from officials, because I am interested in this. I'd like to engage constructively, but to no avail, Minister Guy wouldn't let me have a briefing. So to look at the detail, it's important we as legislators get our head around these issues. Technology is shaping lives in ways we can't even imagine probably in the next 5 to 10 years, certainly longer. More and more of us are engaging with our government online. More and more of us only engage with the government online. As Chris Hockenbold said, the government's embracing technology, but I think they've done some good things, but I also think it's maybe a bit of an exaggeration to portray ourselves as world leaders in the technological field. You know, we've got the Skynet, the copyright infringing file sharing law, engaging with the ACTA negotiations recently signed in Tokyo, the punitive rules in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Look, you know, I don't think we're embracing technology as we could be. I don't think we're world leaders in this. This is one area where we certainly could be. You know, take IRD. It was only last year that this Parliament passed the law, the Education Act number 4, that let student loan borrowers go online to check their balance. You know, 2011, this Parliament wasn't passing legislation. Take the legislation just before this bill, the road user charges bill, at a time when we could be using digital electronic technology. We're instead going down an absolute opposite path and getting averages, weight-based models of calculating road user charges. The stuff we're talking about in this Parliament is topical. We've just seen in America and all around the world, literally 7,000 websites, I think it was, 4.5 million people signed Google's petition in one day, which saw the House of Representatives in the US and the Senate fully step backwards from the punitive copyright legislation there, the SOPA PIPA laws in the two houses. We've seen the mega load-up arrests, where we've had 70 police officers flying in from helicopters to catch someone alleged of copyright infringing. And to the right side of the ledger, we are seeing the government invest a considerable sum in ultra-fast broadband, which the Green Party supports the intent of. I think what we have seen in terms of the Skynet legislation debates in New Zealand, the SOPA PIPA debates in America, it's no longer okay, as a popular blog post also points out, it's no longer okay for us as legislators to not know anymore. It's not a badge of honour to pretend we don't use computers, we don't know how to engage. It's not okay anymore. We have to get on top of our game. I think there's salutary lessons, and I look forward to engaging with the other members, the officials, the submitters and the Select Committee. So, Mr Speaker, we will be supporting this legislation to the Select Committee. We think it's common sense. We think there's some definite inefficiencies. We could be engaging with other departments. But also there's some tremendously exciting opportunities that flow out from this legislation. Take the last election. We saw the lowest ever youth unenrolment level in our country's history. I heard anecdotally of people around the country who would have enrolled, who would have liked to have voted, but they had to send in the blasted form via a fax machine from overseas. We heard of people who would have loved to have done it online in between checking Facebook or Twitter to enrol online. There's no framework or no legislative allowances for that. I'd like to see this law look at how we take this unique identifier to understand the potentialities not only for our economy and society but also our democracy. So what we see with that change, which I think would be desirable in our future, is a challenging of the central tenet, which we've talked about under the Clause 4 debate in this Parliament, which is that, we shouldn't worry about privacy concerns. Everything's taken care of in that Clause 4 section and the principles. However, at the moment, the main protection is the fact that it's only opt-in for people to have their data served. But if we are going to unleash the powers of this legislation, obviously we're going to have to look at a mandatory type system in the future. And what are the privacy implications there? So we see that people can't opt out in every circumstance when it comes to this bill. People can't opt out of statistical analysis. As Ruth Dyson aptly put, there is a digital divide. We still need to make sure people have options. We can't replace every type of communication or validation with the government. It's been good to see the Privacy Commissioner has been involved in the drafting of this legislation. I think we might want to investigate in the Select Committee actually going slightly further than what this bill outlines, which is currently the Privacy Commissioner can go to the Chief Executive of the Department of Internal Affairs and ask for a report. I wonder whether we should write into the legislation or through orders and councils a regular reporting requirement, given this is the front lines of both the privacy and new technological developments in New Zealand. The regulatory impact statement talks about the risk of function creep, which I think is a definite risk when it comes to this. And when we look at the Privacy Commissioner's website, she's got a Principle 12 of the Privacy Principles, Mr Speaker, and it says categorically, and it's going to be interesting to ask her how she's going to deal with it, which is the government is not allowed to give people one personal number to use in all their dealings with government agencies. A whole bunch of questions around privacy, around the sharing of information between government departments, around what I believe is a flagrant overuse of orders and council by this government to pass regulations. These are all questions the Green Party look forward to raising with officials and submitters and the other parties in the Select Committee process. We urge Kiwis to get out there, make a submission, find out more about it. And I think there's a whole host of subsidiary issues which I think would be valid to raise on the Select Committee, which is around the need for a timeline of those order and councils to be brought in by the government, some questions around what the scope of those fees are going to be for the full costing. I think we've got to ask the officials flat out, are they confident we can avoid cybersecurity or hacking threats, given having one unique repository for information does make us vulnerable, and we've seen governments fall victim to that recently. And also, as a historian, Mr Speaker, with the interest for future archivists, what are we going to leave as a legacy, given that so many of us found out about our families around the world because those paper forms, those parish books still exist, we can still access it. So I think a whole bunch of important questions. It's the front line of the privacy and the technological debate in this country, and the Green Party look forward to constructively engaging with all the parties in Parliament. Kia ora, Mr Speaker.
I call Kanwaljit Singh Bakshi.
Mr Speaker, I stand in support